Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Today we have with us Lisa Tahir. She's an intuitive psychotherapist and author. Lisa is the founder of Psychoastrology. She's an intuitive psychotherapist who melds ancient wisdom, also known as astrology, with modern transformational tools. And she loves to empower others by encouraging them to heal their core wounds and showing them how to do this. Welcome to the show, Lisa. It's really exciting to have you here. And I can't hardly wait to talk about what you got in your book and how that affects all of us.
Jill, thank you so much for having
Welcome to
me.
the show.
I appreciate your welcome. I am delighted to be here with you and everyone watching and listening. It's an honor and pleasure.
Wonderful. So tell us how you got started in psychoastrology. That's just like, it's such an interesting way to phrase that.
Jill, I feel like psychoastrology found me about 7 years ago.
Are you having trouble hearing me?
There's a little bit of a delay, I notice, but I can hear you. Should I keep going?
Okay. We'll just work with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I had been
It's live.
curious. It is. I had been curious, Jill, and just asking the universe, asking myself, why is it after having been a client myself in therapy for 20 years and being a therapist to others and my really brilliant clients that are successful in so many ways, why do we still have these patterns at times of feeling depressed, not good enough, still have some anxiety, imposter syndrome, however you want to term the kind of emotional struggles, despite so much success and beautiful relationships? And I just was puzzled by it, Jill. And as I sought to hear the answer, I was led to Chiron, Chiron. It just kept popping up just in my thoughts, in my research, people talking about it, just somehow Chiron just started showing up in my daily emails. And I know when that happens to take some time out, to listen, to look. And that's where I really discovered this pattern, thought patterns, where we tend to feel vulnerable, where we tend to source beliefs that we have about ourselves from. And these are the areas of our lives that, despite really wonderful outcomes, we still might doubt ourselves or doubt life. And it's really through embracing those parts of ourselves with empathy, with love, and deep forgiveness that we can really transform that into our empowerment, into our knowing, okay, here this is again. It's an invitation to really love myself more, to go more gently with myself or others, and start to soften the criticisms and judgment of ourselves and of others.
Yeah, that's so important. And when it comes to the astrological aspect of this, Chiron plays a big role, from my understanding, in and how we're feeling. Why don't you actually go ahead and explain what the Chiron effect is and how it affects us?
Sure. And then I'd love to hear your knowledge about Chiron, because Chiron is multitudinous in what I think Chiron represents for me as a therapist, finding Chiron, which is an astrological placement in each of our birth charts. And I had never had my Chiron placement explained to me when I've had an astrological reading. And for me, this was new to see that it has a real psychological application as far as an area that I consider on a spectrum. On one end, there's deep core wounding. If you've experienced a trauma like sexual abuse, domestic violence, emotional abuse, abandonment, that's going to be a deeper wound where you really have unmet needs that you might not have learned yet how to meet appropriately as an adult. You might find yourself in patterns of relationships where people leave and you're abandoned, really replicating a wound from your childhood. And that spectrum extends to the other end of it, whereas vulnerability, just maybe an ouch. This is an area it's like, ooh, here it is again, but it's not as deep of a pain point experience as for some people. And so just know that going into it, that you're somewhere along that spectrum, and it may change throughout your lifespan. What I think makes knowing your Chiron placement so important is because it's the one area to really affirm yourself in, to really work with in this life that we're here to live. It's the one area that we tend to source our thought patterns from in whatever aspect of our lives that we might doubt ourselves in. And if Chiron is in the sign of Aries, it will be vulnerability or wounding, for example, around your own value and worth, that despite being successful on paper and really people think the world of you, you might have a hard time letting it in, and you feel like you're never enough, that you have to keep doing more. And the older you get, the more exhausted you can be, because it's like, oh my gosh, when am I gonna feel it? And it's not about doing any more than you've done. It's about pausing to know how valuable and worthy you are, period. And that any more successes and achievements you choose to do it because they really make you happy, not because you feel like you have to like have a right to be here. And this is where we see a pattern of people pleasing and really learning how to untangle that you're worthy of being loved, even if you disagree with a parent, a loved one, a partner, that's okay. You can really be loved. And I'm just using Chiron and Aries as an example to make it really practical, how this can show up and why it's valuable to understand, so we can start like untangling this, which is coming up with you, Jill. That's the language that's coming to mind, and like give ourselves a break.
Yeah.
How do you see
Is it
Chiron?
I'm I'm very new to astrology, so I've heard of Chiron, and I was wondering if Chiron wasn't the the astrologichical body that kind of governs a whole generation. Am I thinking it
Yeah,
of
yeah.
something else?
You know, you're correct. Chiron, which is actually in outer space in astronomy, Chiron is
Mhm.
designated both as a minor planet and as a comet. It was discovered in the 70s by a Charles Cowell, Kowel, and he noted that Chiron had an odd elliptical orbit between the planets of Saturn and Uranus, and it was named Chiron in astronomy after the Greek centaur Chiron, who is the founding father of the healing arts. And when we go to the doctor today, most offices have the staff of medicine, that emblem. Chiron gave that staff to Asclepius, the founding father of medicine, whom he tutored. So it's really cool to see Chiron references in life that I just never knew had. So yeah, Chiron in astronomy is this minor planet slash comet. Some people call it an asteroid. I don't think we need to mince terms to get the point about
It's a
it. And
body out there.
yeah, exactly. In our universe, in our solar system, and it does spin from 3 to 8 years in a sign because of that ellipsis, that it'll kind of more quickly go through some signs and longer in others. So you're correct about that. So people of your generation can share the same Chiron placement, people of your same age, but the house placement very well might be different. And the house placement is determined by your time of birth. And not everyone has that, which is fine, because the time of birth, the house placement denotes the area of your life where this vulnerability or wounding shows up. Is it in your self-esteem versus is it in the workplace, or is it with money, or is it in your marriage, romantic relationship? But you're going to know that once you start reading and learning, you're going to know where this manifests. So there's no need to get hung up on a time of birth.
Yeah, because you're just going to experience it and you're going to go, oh, yeah, that's where it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, exactly.
I didn't get into astrology until I was much older. And so
Yeah,
I've looked at my birth chart and I've looked at, the patterns. Astrology isn't so much about predicting as it is about giving you information about what the potential is for you.
yeah,
The patterns that you'll probably recognize as you go through life. And when you look backwards at it, you're just like, oh yeah, that was so that point.
yes. I feel the same way, Jill. And a huge, tell me if this resonates with you or not, but I used to struggle with astrology is something dictated to me. And I
Mhm.
realized this is something I wrote. I wrote my chart before I came to Earth in my physical body. And that was like the biggest wow moment for me. Like I created this for myself to experience things. And now that I'm here, I have free will and the ability to learn skills to determine the outcome of my life, to really live the life I want, nothing that's determined for me, that it comes through me. And that was just really exciting. How do you see that?
I see it the same way because it's kind of like you sent yourself a letter to the future.
Yeah, I like that.
And then when you show up and you've forgotten all this stuff, there's some place you can go and say, oh yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
And these are the things that maybe setting themselves up in the future. And this is what I can do in order to really maximize the potential for that. It's like when we look at 2024 and the dragon and all the astrological things that are happening, where it's just like such an amazing time for manifesting things. It's just
Yes.
like the power is right now. It's like suddenly you've turned up the volume on the light bulb in your room, those dimmer
Yeah.
switches. You can turn it down and sometimes it turns up really high, and you can take advantage of the times when things are flowing in your direction, so you're not having to push against the stream or trying to cross the stream at an angle. You can just like flow with it. um
Yes.
you get more done if you're paying attention to what's happening around you and what the guideposts say. you know Now's the time to speed up, and then sometimes it's time to slow down.
Yes. Yeah. Truly. And to really listen to that. That's where I believe the role of our intuition is
Mhm.
so important, to really listen to yourself and the hunches you get, the feelings you have that might not make practical sense, but to trust that. And you might not need to go speak it everywhere to people, because a lot of people are afraid of that, and they might try to talk you out of your really good inner knowing that we have this ability within to navigate our lives when we listen to the wisdom of our bodies and our intuition. And I think Chiron plays a role in really enabling yourself to follow the leads that arise from within you, that once you have an awareness that my self-esteem might be affected because I doubt myself, but as I learn, let me try to trust myself some more and see what happens this week, and maybe follow some of those hunches and see they lead you to more of what you want. You start to gain confidence in doing that more. And it can be a quiet inward process that you don't have to go telling everyone about. I found that to be helpful, Jill, to do it privately and inwardly.
Yeah. And daily.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't have to take hours of time. It doesn't even have to take an hour or even a half an hour. It can just be as simple as when you're waking up in the morning, just tuning in, lay there for a few minutes, tune into what you're feeling and what's coming to your head, to your mind. And whether you act on it or not, you're just giving space for the consciousness that is you to move into the day with some purpose and some intention.
Yes. That's so powerful and beautifully said. It can be such a delicious time in the morning as you open your eyes before you jump up, even if you can hit snooze and just really kind of relish and, good morning, like to the universe, to the day. Like I ask for guidance and wisdom and for everything to go well, and bless everyone and everything I come in contact with, including myself, and just kind of have something you put out there, and take a few moments to listen and receive what you might need to know today.
Yeah. And and looking through things like your astrological chart, most people are familiar with their sun sign,
Yeah.
and I've recently become familiar with my moon sign. And
Okay.
it's interesting to me how much the moon really influences our lives. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the sun sign is like, this is your big overall overarching who you are sort of thing. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's like the header on your report that you're sending ahead. this
Yes.
this is the big mission. And the rest of this, the moon sign, I think is like, it's like the subtitle. This is your big who you are, but this is really kind of where your mission is. And this
Mm-hmm.
is what's going to help you really move into the direction you need to go. And then you've got, the other planets and Chiron, who is like the overarching theme for a group of people all
Yeah.
passing through that time together. So maybe we're connected in some way, and we're
I love
supposed to
that.
have some sort of impact as a group, because different at
Mm-hmm.
different times you have different amounts of people being born,
Right.
which is also interesting. And
I
if
like you for I'm loving your macro level uh viewpoint. Keep going.
well, if you look at, like, in the 60s there were a lot of people being born, but sometimes some months there's a lot more people being born, and in
Mm-hmm.
some decades there are a lot more people being born, in some years there are a lot more people being born, and then you go through periods like we're in right now where there aren't so many people being born.
Mm-hmm.
So the power of that group, it's like, I wonder what
Yeah.
their impact's going to be. And um it's just interesting to me, because, like you said, Chiron has the impact over, 3 to 8 years, and different packs have different almost
Yes.
assignments.
Is your Chiron in the sign of Pisces?
I don't know.
Okay. It's interesting because if so, that was the 60s, the and I have in my book, even I'm reading the 60s. Is that when you grew up?
Yeah, I was born into 1960.
Okay. Was a unique time in American culture. The Beatles released Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and was nicknamed the Summer of Love. Like where were the boundaries? Boundaries were really being pushed. There was expression and freedom, and some of your needs might not have been met, and kind of getting lost in that shuffle of
Yep.
maybe your parents' personal expression and having to find your own way. And you might have neglected your self-care or turned to addictive habits. And that's not just you, but
No, the
anyone
whole
born during this time.
generation.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that you learn to really give a lot of care to others. Usually this placement, Mother Teresa had her Chiron in the sign of Pisces, and we know the impact she made, but she found her balance. And the quote I use in my book is when you get on the airplane and they say always to put your oxygen mask on first,
Mhm.
even before helping your children. That's the image for Chiron and Pisces. People that I'd love you to remember is take care of yourself. So you're giving from a full well instead of a depleted well, because you're going to do it more seamlessly and in the way authentically you truly want to, and really learning the balance of giving and receiving. And that's really important for people born during that time.
That's very interesting. I am a Pisces and my
Oh, wow.
lunar
Okay.
sign is Aquarius. So I'm
Okay.
very much a water person.
Yeah. And healthy boundaries, things like that, self-nourishment,
I
you
had to
know.
learn all those things and I
Yeah,
didn't learn them till much later in life and a lot of wounds
sure.
from that sort of stuff. But it's not like it's just me either. I
No.
like the whole generation of
Yeah,
mostly I know women, but
yeah,
the whole generation of women that were born around the same time I was born, we went through a lot. Our moms went through a lot in
yeah,
terms of becoming individuals because before the 60s women really didn't have rights. They weren't. We talk about
exactly.
you know
Exactly.
the African American population having no rights. Well,
Mm-hmm.
the Civil Rights Act actually gave women
Yeah.
autonomy too.
Yes, yes. And all that was happening then. There was so much
Yeah,
happening that needed to happen.
yeah. But you've got all of these women, and then they were suddenly being divorced in droves. Men were
Right,
like, oh, well, I don't have to stay married to her. She can just go and take care of herself. But these women
right.
didn't have any, they used to go to college to find husbands, not to
Yes,
get an
yes.
education. So
Exactly. I remember my mom talking about that. Yeah.
that's why they had sororities. So they had somebody to watch over the girls when they were there, so keep them out of trouble.
Wow. Yeah, and having to learn to take care of yourself.
Yeah. It's just, it,
Like a
it was,
bird being kicked out of the nest is what I'm seeing in my mind's eye.
yeah. A lot of women in their 70s now and 80s, they were divorced. Husbands divorced them and
Hmm.
just left them to fend for themselves.
Wow.
It was a really pretty rocky time. And a lot of the people that are in my age group, their parents got divorced. And when I
Okay.
started having kids, it was still in the 80s, the 70s and 80s, there was still divorce was really rampant. But I think it's slowed down a lot. And people don't get married as quickly as they used to.
Right, right. Yeah, my parents divorced in the 80s, and I remember it was very prevalent for that to be happening in my peer group.
Yeah, everybody and their brother, and nobody really knew how to blend families back then. And um, like now, when people get divorced, if they do get divorced, they it's not so much about pitting the children against each other.
Thank
It
goodness,
was
because
it was really vicious back then.
yeah, and hurtful and harmful to children.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and now they just get multiple parents.
So that's where I think for some, children of divorce during that time where their Chiron placement might be in Aries, which is the self-esteem issue, or in Cancer, core wounding by abandonment, where they
Mhm.
might have actually been abandoned by a parent, as I know some individuals with this placement whose parent just went off and started a new family. And they were like, oh my gosh, like, so traumatized by that. So we can see how these movements in our culture affect generations from
Mhm.
my perspective, psychologically and emotionally, spiritually, and it really ties back to this Chiron placement.
It's so interesting. I
Mm-hmm.
so what's a Chiron placement for right now for people being born right now in the
Right now,
last year or
Chiron
so?
is in the sign of Aries. And
Mhm.
again, it's that wounding in one sense of value and worth. But hopefully with, and that really depends on the environment you come from, whether this is just like an ouch or an awareness that you have versus a major trauma, if that's what you experience. So it's that spectrum. And hopefully, you know, there's less traumatic upbringings for children, but it's in Chiron is in the sign of Aries, the short answer.
Interesting, interesting. So, how do people work with you? Get your book, all the things.
Thank you, Jill.
It's so
I love
fascinating.
just helping people to really have more compassion for themselves. Empathy is the word I used in my book, self-empathy and self-forgiveness, because I was always taught that forgiveness is for someone else. I was never told that I can forgive myself, and I actually need to in order to heal my self-esteem, in order to have confidence that's deeper than just a momentary achievement of my ego. Like deep self-forgiveness really is how we can feel stable inside, no matter what's changing on the outside in our world, politically or any other climate, to really know, hey, I have the skills to navigate life. I'm going to be okay no matter what. It really comes through life experience and forgiving ourselves where we wish we would have done better, and knowing life is going to give us so many more opportunities to do differently, to do better, to keep showing up, to be consistent, nothing's ever lost for good. Like there'll be more ways to exercise that muscle and express yourself, and to really start to trust in the cycles of life for you specifically. And I love helping people with that. And my book is available everywhere. You can get it at Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble, even Walmart.com. I was surprised to see. And if you have a favorite local bookstore, which as I do here in New Orleans, Blue Cypress Books up the street, you can bring my book title in and they'll be able to order it from my publisher to have for you. So you can really help keep these brick and mortar bookstores in business, which are so important. So important.
It really is. I miss that Barnes and Nobles isn't on the street corner like it used to be, and
Yeah,
but there are still some
there are.
more independent book houses around, and you just books are like they're full of words, and words
They're
are
like gold.
everything.
Yes, yes. And even if your local bookstore doesn't have my book, might give the title, pull it up online. They can order it for you so you can shop from them. And my website is nolatherapy.com. N-O, like New Orleans, L-A, Los Angeles, therapy.com. And you can reach out. Lisa@nolatherapy.com is my email. I'd love to work with you. And if you mention Jill's show, the U World Order, I'm happy to give you half off a standard $190 session. It'll be half off that to explore Chiron and just see how I can help you help yourself.
That's very generous, Lisa. I really appreciate that.
Thank
I'm
you,
gonna
Jill.
repeat the title of your book because I'm not sure if we announced it actually on the show or
Oh,
not,
yeah.
if we were just talking about it before the show.
Yes,
So you want to share it or you want me to?
you can share it.
Okay, it's the Chiron Effect, healing our core wounds through astrology, empathy, and self-forgiveness. So I'll repeat that again. The Chiron Effect, healing our core wounds through astrology, empathy, and self-forgiveness. And like Lisa said, it's available everywhere. Um, yeah, it's so interesting how different groups of people are out there moving through and really understanding what your trauma is in your life is the beginning of healing for you. Not just you though, it's for everybody.
It really
Because
is.
because once you figure out why you're running around feeling like the hurt child that you were,
Yeah,
you can help other people overcome it too. And so the whole
absolutely.
group of you moves into the next phase of your life, which is moving this world to higher consciousness and better place for us all to live.
Yes, Jill. And to address the astrological component that you've spoken so beautifully about today is in the back of my book. I have a resource section and I share the websites of several astrologers that I've worked with and really enjoy their work because my book is focused on the psychological impacts of Chiron and how we can take personal responsibility to heal ourselves. The astrology is brief because I'm a psychotherapist, not an astrologer, but I give you those references. And I say that because the one criticism of my book on Goodreads and other places has been that it's not a lot of astrology, but I'm very clear about this being a real psychological healing book and guide, an emotional healing book. I come to it in that through that doorway. And there are other books about the astrology of Chiron, more so like Barbara Handclough and others. So just know that this is like a deep dive into your mental health and well-being and really getting at your thoughts. We think up to 70,000 thoughts a day. I want you to use as many of those as you can to really serve your well-being and your happiness and your peace. So just to give that kind of information might help too our audience.
Yeah. And it's so true. It's you're not an astrologer, you're a psychotherapist.
Yeah.
And they're very different, but
Yeah.
using that framework, it's kind of like human design. People
It
that
is.
human design, they use the framework of some of these other modalities, but they've molded it into a way that helps give clarity to how your life is going and why your life is doing what it's doing and how you can embrace it and make your life better.
Exactly. And when you embrace your astrology and make it psychological, that's where I came up with psychoastrology. They blend beautifully to help you navigate life and the things you've gone through that still might stand out as feeling unresolved or a pain point. You can really bring healing and forgiveness to yourself and eventually others involved, if that's what's needed, by really combining these two to understand yourself and understand your world with more ease.
For sure. You've just covered so much amazing information. So what's the one thing you hope the audience takes away from our conversation today, Lisa?
You know, Jill, I feel like you've highlighted it, saying it in different ways, and as have I, is really for people to have more ease. I want you to know that you can have more ease in your thoughts. And again, to really, I feel like freedom is really when you feel emotionally good and stable, regardless of what's going on out there, outside of your own body and mind. And to really, you can harmonize with the energy of the solution for everything and start to see that unfold. Like you said, Jill, this is a time powerfully to manifest what we really desire. And it's through bringing some peace, starting in the morning as you wake up and just really inviting in the answers and the solutions and show me, and start to look. I want people to know that information like wants to get to you, like wants to come into your life now.
Absolutely. The universe is here to help us.
Yeah.
Really wants to. Thank you so much for joining me today, Lisa.
Thank you. You're wonderful.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the U World Order or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.